Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna. Reading from Bhagavad-gita, chapter 1, text number 11. Ayaneṣu cha sarveṣu, yathā-bhāgam avasthitāḥ, bhīṣmam evābhirakṣantu, bhavantaḥ sarva evahi. Ayaneṣu in the strategic points, cha also, sarveṣu everywhere, yathā-bhāgam as differently arranged, avasthitāḥ situated, bhīṣmam unto Grandfather Bhīṣma, eva certainly, abhirakṣantu should give support, bhavantaḥ you, sarve all respectively, evahi certainly. Translation: all of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhīṣma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhīṣma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhīṣmadeva was undoubtedly the greatest hero. But he was an old man, so everyone must think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhīṣmadeva. He was confident of the full support of Bhīṣmadeva and Droṇācārya in the battle because he knew full well that they did not... Let me say that again. He was confident of the full support of Bhīṣmadeva and Droṇācārya in the battle because he knew well that they did not even speak a word. When Arjuna's wife Draupadī, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pāṇḍavas, he hoped that these generals would now completely give it up, as they had done during the gambling performances. Ayaneṣu cha sarveṣu, yathā-bhāgam avasthitāḥ, bhīṣmam evābhirakṣantu, bhavantaḥ sarva evahi. All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhīṣma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Om jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam yena tasmai sri gurave namaha. I'll touch on 2 points in my commentary on this verse. First of all of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhīṣma. Again, Duryodhana is an expert leader. You must give full support to Grandfather Bhīṣma. Each of you has a vital contribution to make. Our victory depends on you. Wherever you are in the phalanx, you are protecting a vital point of entry strategically into our phalanx. You matter. I'm counting on you. He's communicating this to each and every soldier there, listening to him. Very, very adept, adroit, expert leadership, speaking in this way. It has been said, and I think this comes from the Gallup organization, that great managers capitalize on what is unique about each person, and great leaders emphasize what everyone has in common. So they bring everyone together by speaking about the commonality of the group. They create the group in their speaking. So in this way, while he has spoken of specific persons and specific personalities, so that no one senses that, well, there's these ones and then there's these other ones, and like, you know, the first-rate ones, and then there's us, and like, what am I even doing here? No. Duryodhana speaks in such a way as a leader to create us. We, all of us, each of you, with your position, your important strategic position of entry into the phalanx. He has created the unity. Unity and diversity is a key concept that Srila Prabhupada wanted for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And leaders in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness must attend to the unity of the organization while respecting the diversity. Which brings me to my second point here, which is that Duryodhana countered with Bhīṣmadeva and Droṇācārya because they had compromised their integrity with Dharma and with the Pāṇḍavas previously. And so now, in order to maintain consistency of character, they had to continue on that trajectory. So he was like, I don't think these guys are going to back out now because we already soft tested them on this previously to see which way they would go. And that was in the assembly during a gambling match where Duryodhana had challenged Yudhisthira, the head of the Pāṇḍava brothers, to a gambling match. And they had organized that gambling match in such a way that it was rigged. And Duryodhana was using rigged dice, and he baited Yudhisthira to the point where Yudhisthira put up Arjuna's wife Draupadī as collateral for a bet and lost. Now this caused a great... this is one of the, in the epic of the Mahabharata, one of the incredibly powerful and pivotal scenes, because this caused, as you can imagine, among the Pāṇḍava brothers themselves, that Yudhisthira has put up Draupadī and then lost her. And then what happened next is that Duryodhana attempted to have Draupadī disrobed in front of the assembly. In terms of provocations, there's little, you know, like, we talk about the religious principles, but there's also like the very personal nature of this feud. Both of them are there together. And it's important not to get caught up that this is just simply a matter of opinion or a personal matter. Yes, it is. And that drives the narrative. But it's also, as we've discussed in previous verses, on the basis of a religious principle. But both of them are there together, and that's what makes the drama particularly powerful. This is not simply an intellectual or academic theoretical exercise. This is very personal. Both Bhīṣmadeva and Droṇācārya sat there in the assembly and said nothing when Duryodhana attempted to have Draupadī disrobed in public, which caused many people to be like, how could these guys do this? You know what? I was kind of on the fence before about how this was going to go, but like, after seeing what they did to that woman in the assembly, I will enter the battle on the side of the Pāṇḍavas. People got polarized in that way. Other people were just like, dude, we need to stick close to the house of Kuru here, because, like, you have a look, Bhīṣma and Droṇācārya, they didn't say anything about that dude. Like, the Pāṇḍavas are going to get, like, killed. They're going to put them on spikes, man. If they're willing to do that, these guys aren't going to stop at anything. So people crystallized in both directions depending on the nature of their character. To bring it to a modern application, because we do find ourselves on the battlefield of Kurukshetra every day. You can find examples in your own life. But the division of devotees on the basis of some bodily identification, as has happened in the last few years, where devotees were discriminated against on the basis of, you know, their so-called vaccination status, whether they bent the knee to propaganda and social pressure to take what is now becoming revealed to be not a safe, not an effective medical intervention, discriminating between the devotees on that basis and rejecting some of them on the order of the asuras is akin to standing by in the assembly and saying nothing when Duryodhana attempted to disrobe Draupadī. For devotees who stood by and let that happen without saying anything about it, who stood by and saw teachers being dismissed from the Gurukulas. So over the last couple of years, many Krishna-conscious teachers, devotees who have been teaching in the Gurukulas, in the schools, were dismissed from their posts on the order of Asuric governments because they refused to bend the knee and take the injection. Devotees who stood by and watched that happening without saying anything have become, like Duryodhana and Bhīṣmadeva, compromised in their integrity. What to speak of leaders who did that? I began this by addressing the first point of the unity and the diversity. There are different distinctions between devotees. Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttama, Adhikari. Devotees are distinguished by their level of faith, their adhikar. Whether it is Kanishta, it is unsteady, where it is Madhyama, it is a medium level, or Uttama, the topmost level of faith. Devotees can be discriminated between on the basis of the rasas that they manifest, and you know, there is constant tension between those of Sakya or Vatsalya rasa and those of Madhurya rasa. For example, the Vatsalya and Madhurya rasa conflict. Mother Yashoda wants Krishna to stay at home in bed at night and get a good night's sleep. The gopis want Krishna to come out at night. The conflict there. But to discriminate between devotees on the basis of some invented, artificial, demonic, asuric, non-shastric Sankhya, to adopt that Sankhya and then to discriminate against Vaishnavas on the basis of Upadhi, on the basis of bodily distinctions, is asuric. Those that have taken this action have taken the side of Duryodhana, like Bhīṣma and Drona did. Those who stood by and watched it happen without saying, this is irreligious. It is irreligious to discriminate between the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord on this basis. You must protest. Those who did not protest, those who did not say that the leaders must protest, they, like Drona and Bhīṣma, have participated in the assembly and watched this preliminary activity take place. Now, you may hear such a comparison made and say, I disagree, it is not such a thing. That is okay. Listen to this point that I'm making here. I am making the point that in the lead up to the Kurukshetra war, this event that happened, which was at the time controvertible, that people would say, I don't agree that Drona and Bhīṣma, did something wrong by standing by and watching that. I don't even agree necessarily that Duryodhana did the wrong thing. I mean, he won fair and square, so he kind of gets to do that. And my assertion that I'm making here is that just as in the lead up to the Kurukshetra war, this was one of the provocations that Duryodhana performed in order to compromise the integrity of the elders of the Kuru house, to corrupt their dharma and bring them over to his side. In the same way, the provocations of demanding that temple presidents and leaders in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness discriminate among the devotees, exclude some on the basis of this consideration, fire some of them from their roles in the Gurukulas, it was the action of an Asuric general to corrupt the elders of the society in the same way that Droṇācārya and Bhīṣma were corrupted. There is an intelligent, deliberate action taking place that bears incredible similarities to the Battle of Kurukshetra. And the reason for this is that the whole world is a stage, and all the men and women are merely the players on that stage. And the drama, the cosmic drama that we find ourselves in, is the repeating story of the Asuras versus the Devas. The next chapter of Bhagavad-gita has been called by Srila Prabhupada and traditionally as Sankhya Yoga. So it is called Contents of the Gita Summarized by Srila Prabhupada, Chapter 2. And that is the name, I believe, given to it by... No, I won't speculate on that. It is called by Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita as it is Contents of the Gita Summarized, but the traditional name is Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of discrimination. It gives the correct bases for discrimination, and discriminating between devotees on vaxxed versus unvaxxed is not one of them. And an argument can be made that, well, you know, from reason, from social, from following the science, but we do not follow the science. We do not follow the society. We follow the Sankhya as followers of Bhagavad Gita. And where the leaders have become unpegged is that they did not follow the Sankhya. They followed the science. They followed the society. They were corrupted. And that corruption in their integrity was a preliminary maneuver, just as Duryodhana did that to Bhīṣma and Droṇācārya. Those two great devotees. Bhīṣmadeva is one of the 12 Mahajans, one of the 12 great authorities on devotional service. And yet he took the side of Duryodhana and he paid the price for that. So even great devotees can be on the other side, as it is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 14th chapter, text number 4, I believe, where it says, Narada says that, you know, even I and the Gandharvas, the great Gandharvas, were worshipping, offering prayers to Hiranyakashipu when he took control. And in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada says that it happens that sometimes devotees come under the control of asuras. It does not mean that they are subordinate to them, but they come under their control, and this is for the purpose of Leela. So this is what happened to Droṇācārya and Bhīṣmadeva. And as it's mentioned here in the Purport, one of the primary mechanisms for doing this was to cause them to compromise their integrity with religious principles. In the assembly of the Kurus, when Duryodhana attempted to have Draupadī disrobed, and that they said nothing, took them onto a different path, which led them to being on that side at the war of Kurukshetra. My assertion that saying nothing about the discrimination against devotees on the basis of vaccination status, and that dismissing the teachers from the Gurukula and those who said nothing about that have taken the same path. Could Bhīṣma and Drona have changed sides at this late point or at any point after that? I do not know. The fact is that they did not. The two sides were formed, and on the day of the battle, they just found themselves on those sides of the battlefield, and they had to perform their duty depending on where they found themselves. So we wake up today and we'll wake up tomorrow, and we wake up every day and find ourselves somewhere on the battlefield of life, the Dharma Kshetra, and we must perform our duty. So we will hear more fully from Krishna what that looks like and how we apply that in our own lives as we go through the sacred conversation between that great devotee, Arjuna, and his very dear friend, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna.